it's Nalini Balchandra, who is the owner, along with the planner for the applicant, Jonathan Benurowski, who's here. We also have with us this evening city planning staff, Renwick Ashby, who is the manager of planning, Rod Hines, who is the principal planner, and Bita Majubudi, who is with us as well. She's a planner. This meeting is being recorded. It's an opportunity for the residents in the area to express their concerns with respect to the application. A number of residents have actually written submissions to the committee. They've also written my office as well. Folks, I want to remind you again to mute your microphone, please. There's a lot of disruption coming through. So we have Ms. Eleonora and Ross. Mr. Ross, if you could mute your microphone, please, that'd be great, because it's just interrupting the meeting.
Okay. How do I mute my microphone?
Thank you. That's great. All right. So the concerns have been raised with me. I have submitted a letter to the Committee of Adjustment asking that we defer this, the decision from the committee, to ensure that members of the community would have an opportunity to discuss their concerns with respect to the variances that have been asked for by the applicant from the Committee of Adjustment. There are specifically 4 variances that the applicant is asking the Committee of Adjustment. They are the following. The first is a proposed front yard setback, whereas the minimum requirement is 7.84 meters. The proposal is asking for a 7.75 meters, which is a 0.09 meter reduction. Or actually, yes, reduction on that. And then at the same time, the second of the ask for the variance is the minimum requirement rear yard setback is 7.62 meters. The proposal is seeking a rear yard setback of 4.17 meters. The third variance is which requires a minimum permitted building height of 17 meters. The proposal is requesting that a variance be granted to allow for a building length of 18.56 meters, as well as the dwelling in the areas here are essentially 2 stories. It seems to me that this is a proposal that's looking to build a dwelling that's approximately 3 stories. So those are the 4 variances that the applicant is actually seeking. We know that the community is it's an established community. We know that there is a harmony both in terms of design and character, as well as the lifestyle of the neighborhood. And there is concern and valid concerns from members of the community that the variance, if granted, will have a negative impact on the, on the not only the street but the entire community. And the fear is that this would be establishing a precedent that would create incompatibility with respect to, the development in a traditional single-family dwelling. I know that there is a tremendous amount of push and effort by many to have, for example, Scarborough being one of those places where we allow rooming houses. I have been steadfastly in opposition to that, along with members I know of the community and also not just this immediate area, but elsewhere as well in the community. I just want to remind people to mute your microphone, please. It's coming through, it's very disruptive, and I want to make sure that we're able to proceed with the meeting. So we want to have an opportunity this evening to discuss this application. We want to hear from the applicant and their representative as to why this is the sort of development that they're proposing for number 2, Cora. And at the same time, there are the standard, I guess, views of the Committee of Adjustment. Their view simply is that they're looking at variances. I think it's understood by members of the community that while the community may be looking at variances, variances actually have an impact on the community as a whole. So for example, we know the number of rooms that this particular application is seeking, number of bathrooms and so on. And it really begs the question, why? Why so many rooms? Why so many bathrooms and so on? And I think that within the context of the community, we actually have had a traditional number of bedrooms and units and bathrooms and so on. Now, I know that the report, and if you have read the report from staff, they do speak to the fact that—
Who do you think Grandpa is?
Hello, sorry if the— okay, folks, I just want to remind you again, we're trying to actually ensure that we've got a move. We actually, I'm just looking here. We actually have a meeting that we can actually facilitate the amount of time that's available for it. So we really need to have everyone mute their mics, please. All right, thank you. All right, so what I'd like to do now, I'd like to ask Mr. Ashby, Renrick, if you're there, please, just to maybe just do a quick overview as to the application. It's either yourself or Bita who may do that. What if you could do that for us before we ask the applicant to make a presentation with respect to their application, please. Renwick, are you there?
Yes, certainly, Deputy Mayor Thompson. It's our pleasure to walk through. I'm here tonight with Bita and with Rod. Bita will be taking us through a brief presentation just to give some context, getting a little bit in terms of what the variances are, and then we'll hand it back to you. Okay, Deputy Mayor. So Bita, if you're ready, go right ahead.
Hi everyone, this is Bita Mahjibi, Assistant Planner at the Scarborough District. This tonight meeting is for committee consultation meeting for application to Cora Crescent, and file number is A0349. I will go to show the plan for the location of this application is south to the Ellesmere Road and east of Primary Road, and is located in the residential detached zone RD 244 under the zoning bylaw 569/2013, and the application proposes to construct a second-story addition over existing dwelling and a two-story rear addition with two-car garage. Here is the zoning map that shows the area within the zoning pocket of zone RD with exception 244. These are the aerial view of the corner lot and two-street view of this corner lot. And here are the requested variances to the zoning bylaw. Renrik, I pass this to you if you want to go over the variances.
Okay, certainly. The Deputy Mayor went through the 4 variances that they're applying for. I'm going to go through them quickly, but what's more important is the variance and the intent, the ultimate intent of the proposal. On the surface, variance 1, which is the minimum rear yard setback, variance 3, the permitted length, and variance 4, the height. They're minor in nature, and there's something that certainly can be dealt with at the Committee of Adjustment. The second variance, where it talks about the minimum rear yard setback, community planning staff will have concerns in terms of the deficient rear yard setback. But what is ultimately most important is what the intent is for the variances and what happens next. And I guess through discussions this evening, we'll get into a little bit more detail as to what the intent, and we'll hear from the applicant as to what the intent is of these to achieve these variances. Bita, was there more you wanted to go through, or should we hand it back to the Deputy Mayor?
I can share the plans, but maybe we can share the plans later during the meeting.
Sure, let's hear from the applicant, and you have plans, you have elevation drawings and things like that, Vita? You have those?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. So let's hear from the applicant now, and then we will, what I think would be helpful is that after the applicant has spoken, or perhaps they wish to show the elevation drawings and so on, we could actually then get into the discussion. So let's hear from the applicant now, please. Jonathan, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Councillor Thompson. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Good evening and welcome. Jonathan, you have the floor. You are here with the owner of the number 2 Cora Crescent of the site?
Correct.
Okay, great. Will you introduce yourself then, please? And then perhaps you can introduce the owner as well, and then we will have some comments from you. And obviously what I think the community is really interested in, Jonathan, is to understand the intent with respect to the ask of the 4 variances that we have discussed.
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm Jonathan Binskowski. I'm a planner with Solark, and I'm here on behalf of the owner, Nalini Blanchard, to discuss the proposal. Now, can I take over the screen? Are we okay with that?
Yes, we'll just get you to the screen sharing. Here we go. Go ahead, please, Jonathan.
Okay. So quickly, I don't want to really go over what Renrick already went over. I'm just going to summarize 2 portions of these. In terms of variance number 1, in my opinion, that is technical in nature. The proposed new front wall that faces the south is built in line with the existing wall. Now, what it is because, and this is actually something I learned on this application, because this lot is greater than 15 meters, it actually has a front yard setback requirement, even if it isn't built in line with the existing first floor. So the proposal to the south is proposed to be built in line with the existing first floor. There is no addition going closer to the street. In terms of variance number 4, the existing dwelling as it sits today is already considered a 2-story dwelling. The zoning bylaw interprets height based upon the average grade of how it addresses the street. Now I'm going to just quickly go to the plans here. To review why that's the case. So if we see here, the established grade is interpreted at the required front yard setback on the fronting street. The existing basement as it exists today is closer to the established grade than the existing first floor that is there today. So in terms of the dwelling as it exists today, it is already considered a 2-story dwelling as per the zoning bylaw. So the additional of the top of the bungalow automatically triggers. Maybe give me 1 sec. Maybe let me turn the light off behind me because I'm seeing a lot of glare behind me. Oh, that might be better. So the existing dwelling, as soon as you put a 2nd story on it, triggers a 3-story requirement. As we can see from here, this is a conventional 2-story dwelling. There is 1 story of living above the garage. There is not 2-story living above the garage. These are basement windows. So in terms of the variances that are requested, I would say that variance number 1 and variance number 4 are really technical in nature, as they are existing site conditions that can't be altered. If we examine the floor plans as it relates to variance number 2 and variance number 3, which deals with rear yard setback, as well as building length. Building length is interpreted under the zoning bylaw from the front main wall to the rear main wall. The addition that's proposed here is a 17'10" rear addition that is located at the east. That portion there is used for a 2-car garage as well as living accommodations on top of it. If we look at where that's appropriated as it sits in terms of the zoning bylaw, we see here 17 meters. That 17 meters extends to this portion here. The request for the additional 1.56 meters is for a recessed portion. Here, if we look here, that's the main wall. We see a recessed portion that is set in from the existing side wall that's there today. That's both on the first floor as well as on the second floor. So that building length is for a recessed portion that is essentially 1.56 meters by 6.24 meters. Now to speak to, as Renrick spoke to, the rear yard setback, this is a corner lot. And in my opinion, planning wise, we look at corner lots slightly different than we do interior lots. And we look at them how it relates to the overall neighborhood of what's there and what exists on these corner lots in relation to interior lots throughout the neighborhood. So what I've done here, so I've taken a map of the neighborhood. This is taken from the City of Toronto website that's available to everybody. What we have here is the subject property. What I've done here now is I've taken these corner lots to interpret how they relate to the interior lots in terms of a building length and where they extend in relation to those houses both adjacent to them. So in this situation, we would see a side lot, where here we would see a rear lot line to a side lot line. So what this tells us in terms of compatibility with what's in the neighborhood, we see building lengths of 19.13 meters, 21.79, 20.6. We see 18.1. And up here we see 20 and 21.17, all on corner lots, how they relate to the interior dwellings. So in terms of compatibility of how this proposal fits within the neighborhood, it clearly fits with that prevailing character of both building lengths as well as a rear yard condition to a side yard condition. Again, I think we have to remember that this is a corner lot, and corner lots should be looked at differently as well as interpreted differently as how it relates to the adjacent properties. Now, to go back to the intent of the rear yard setback provision, that rear yard setback provision really is there to allow for amenity space, both for the neighbors here, as well as encroachment into the rear yards of adjacent neighbors. But again, we see that this is a situation that exists throughout the neighborhood. To go back to the plans very quickly and address Councillor Thompson's questions of how it relates to the livability of the dwelling itself. This is a single family dwelling house. Nalini has lived in the house, I believe, since 2014. She has an elderly mother who she plans on having come and live with her. In addition to friends and family that come to visit, her in-laws, her siblings have children that all come to stay with her. In no way is this proposed to be a rooming house. There is no intent for that. If we actually look at the second floor, we see we have a reading room, a TV lounge. This is a conventional 4-bedroom house on the second floor. And again, to further Councillor Thompson's point, zoning bylaw does not regulate the interior, but I do appreciate the concerns. So this is entirely a single family dwelling. That even being said, the zoning bylaw permits secondary suites in the basement as of right. If it was the intention of the owner to make this a multi-unit house, this would be identified as having a basement apartment or a secondary suite or an accessory suite, however we'd like to phrase it. That is not even an issue at Committee of Adjustment and can be obtained through a building permit tomorrow. And I think that pretty much wraps up my my presentation. And then I'm happy to hand it back to Councillor Thompson.
All right, thank you very much, Jonathan. Did the owner wish to speak, Jonathan? Nalini?
The owner is here. I think Nalini was going to say a quick hello, but I think she's a little overcome by.
Okay,
kind of
no problem. That's fine. That's fantastic. Yes. Thank you. All right, so we are just going to, just before I go to the questions, Mr. Ashby and Mr. Hines or Vita, I wonder if you could comment, please, on Jonathan's position with respect to 2 stories in the what seems to be a grading issue that he was addressing. Is this a 2-story or is this a 3-story development, if you wish? What's the V1 planning?
Okay, Rod, if you want to handle that, please.
I'll give it a stab. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Thank you, Rod.
Basically, it is a 2-story dwelling over top of a basement. I think we can all agree the basement is that floor of the building that goes below grade. And it happens to be considered a story when you count stories 1, 2, and 3, simply because it projects out of the ground above the elevation that Jonathan walked us through. It projects high enough. Under the bylaw, it has to be called a story. But in all other respects, it presents itself as a traditional 2-story dwelling that may be a little higher in terms of how far the basement windows project out of the ground. That's it. And I think that qualification was noted in the public notice as well.
All right. Thank you very much, Rod. All right, folks, it's time now to get to the questions. The first 3 individuals that I've seen who have questions are Michelle, William, and Ruth. And if others have questions, please, again, put up your hands. And again, just to make sure that we all understand the process, you'll be allowed to ask a question and then a follow-up question, and then we move to the next questioner. I just want to remind everyone, you may disagree or you may agree with the application, but I will ask you for your patience. We'll ask you to be professional. We'll ask you to use a level of calm in terms of describing any concerns that you have with respect to this application and so on, and allows us to then have an orderly meeting. So now I'm going to mute my mic and ask Michelle to ask your first question and a follow-up if you wish, please. Michelle, go ahead, please. We'll just unmute your mic.
Hi, Mr. Thompson. Good evening, everyone. I just
Good evening.
wanted to bring up something to Jonathan before I ask my question. The map that was presented, and I wrote to the city, the map that they enclosed to the individual showing 2 Dewar Road, and the example, Jonathan, that you made that it's a large building of 19.7. I just want to inform you that I live next door and I have the identical house. And that image was taken 20 something years ago when there was a shed, and there's no longer a shed. So for you to be using that as the example that the corner unit at 2 Dewar Road has an extension in the back is inaccurate, number 1. So number 2 Dewar Road is exactly the same layout. If you pull up the map, you will see. Jonathan, do you have that map? Jonathan?
Michelle, can you pose your question, please?
Well, I just wanted to just inform him that the map that he showed, number 1, was inaccurate. Does he have the map?
Appreciate that.
Look at that.
That's fine. Just pose your question, please.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
But have we lost Jonathan?
We're not sure, but just pose your question, please.
No,
because
I'm
Jonathan's here to answer
I'm just
questions.
waiting for a question.
Okay. Well, I was hoping you could pull up that other map, but can you pull that up quickly? Just so that it's not misleading information. The map of, yes. So number 2, if you see number 2, I'm number 4, which is right beside. So if you see where it says 19.3, my house is right beside, and it's the exact same layout right now. So the bottom down, you were referring to the corner unit, the opposite of the street at 2 Dewar, at the bottom, down, right there where it says 19.3. Yeah, that house does not have an extension there. Okay, it's exactly like the house beside it, just to let you know. So my question is, currently 2 Cora has a bylaw infraction whereby the fence is on the property line. And I'd like to know, because if she is then required to abide by the fence bylaw, that may then change these numbers as far as the setback. And I'd like to know, can an applicant go ahead with these variants when there's already a current infraction, please?
Well, what I would say to that is that fence predates the current owners occupying the dwelling. So that fence was actually built before Ms. Blanchard even purchased the property. So that was
I don't believe that to be the
I
case.
believe that was a situation. Can I answer the question, please?
I don't believe that is to be the case, though, because the owner at
Michelle,
12
sorry, I do have to conduct the meeting, and we do have to allow others to ask the questions. We can deal with the fence issue later on. We can look into that. But please, you have a follow-up question?
No, my question was if there is a current.
We understand the question, Michelle. Michelle, I understand the
Yes,
question.
but could he answer
But
that?
obviously, Jonathan is not able to answer that question
But
for
my
you.
question wasn't to
But
Jonathan.
what I would like to do is I'd like to look into that because I'm not aware of the, as you say, the bylaw infraction. That's something that I can look into. I can get back to you on that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then that
So
question would
Jonathan,
have been directed for somebody in planning.
that's correct. I don't know that planning would have the answer either because it's a bylaw enforcement and not a planning issue per se. But if planning wants to take a crack at it, please go ahead. And then we'll move to the next questioner, which will be William. Thanks, Michelle.
Yeah, if I could just jump in, Deputy Mayor. The bylaw in terms of building setback requirements speaks to the setback from the property line, not any fence line. The fence could be on one side of the lot line, on the lot line, or on the opposite side of the lot line. That's not the concern of the zoning bylaw.
Okay, thank you very much, Lauren. We have now William, please. And I'm going to add some other speakers to the list. I see a number of hands. William, please.
So good evening, everyone, and thank you, Deputy Mayor Thompson. I really don't have questions. I do believe, though, that Jonathan, this whole presentation lacks a lot of transparency. And you know, the number of bathrooms, the people that are already renting in there, the number of cars that are already congesting the parking issues. You know, my parents immigrated to Canada, and we had a very large family. None of us needed 7 bathrooms. I understand you think that everything inside can be to the discretion of the builder and the planner, and everybody's entitled to their privacy. I've renovated my house. We sought a local architect so that we could fit into the planning of the neighborhood. People are doing additions. This is a big box that, you know, all these variants, whether minor or little, they've all exceeded. And I would recommend that we don't exceed any of the variances as far as I'm concerned. You have an elderly couple that's lived next door for 40 years. I'm speaking on their behalf as well. The health of the one gentleman is not great, and they are totally against this. They're already seeing problems with lack of maintenance on the property with shoveling, the number of cars that are parking, the disturbances that they're having. This individual is entitled to renovate her house, staying within the parameters that are in the building codes. I don't object to anything like that, but the lack of transparency and your involvement in this is really concerning for me because with respect to the number of bathrooms, yeah, you could say it's a living room, you could say whatever upstairs, and you can change it to whatever you want. It's already happening. The rooming house issue is an issue. I recognize and I respect people need places to live, but we have to build within the parameters that's within the community. I've been here since 1994. I love the neighborhood. I've raised my kids here. And as I said, the gentleman and the lady next door don't deserve to have such a large aggravation. Family and everybody
Bill,
Sorry,
thank you
sir.
very much for your comment.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I do have to get on to other questions. Your comment is duly noted and much appreciated. Our next questioner is Ruth, and then we have number 12, Door, then Sandra, and then Lauren. Those are the folks that I have on my list. So Ruth, you're up, please. You have a question and a follow-up. Go ahead, please, or a comment if you wish.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Okay, I just wanted to ask, even though it's a technicality, this really is an additional story going on this building. And I'm wondering how much of the sunlight that is going to impact on all the houses around it, including mine, which is directly across the road.
Thank you for the question, Jonathan.
Yeah, this is a true 2-story dwelling. It is a technicality that is 3 stories, and the height of the proposal complies with the zoning bylaw itself. So there is no request for an increase in height that is proposed. So in terms of impact, what the zoning bylaw envisions both for height is in keeping with the zoning bylaw. And in terms of living across the street, there would be no effect for you across the street on any loss of sunlight.
Excuse
Thank you,
me, but
Jonathan.
if you're putting an additional story on top of a building, there is absolutely going to be an impact. You must appreciate that.
There will be absolutely no impact from a top up on a bungalow into adjacent properties.
That's not
Okay.
possible.
Okay, thanks very much, Ruth, for the question and follow-up. Our next on the list is number 12 Door Road. I don't have your name, I just have the address. Go ahead, please, number 12.
My name is Panagiotis Panagopoulos. Hello, how are you?
Good
Anyways, just-
evening, welcome.
Thank you. Just it's the privacy thing between the backyard as well, like them looking in on the backyard and stuff like that. That's pretty, like, my parents don't like that, right? And also for future, from them renting the house later, like let's say the house gets sold, how do we prevent it from being a boarding house later on? That's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah, sorry, this
That's-
is Daniela. I'm just speaking on behalf of my in-laws. So with the addition, I know Jonathan just said that first he says it's a bungalow, now he's calling it a 2-story. I mean, when you're adding an additional floor and an extension that now encroaches onto somebody's backyard, into their space with windows facing into their backyard, you're removing someone's entire privacy. You're blocking their access to natural light. You're removing that. So that does impact other people that live in the neighborhood, especially it's
Okay.
physically in moving into the backyard
Just a question.
space. And again,
Okay,
what are the chances of us, if the house gets changed and again, everybody moves on to a new home? I mean, is there any way to prevent the chances of this becoming a boarding or rooming house in the future? Because again, there is a split units that are going to be in the house, furnished units, right? So I mean, that could then support that need if someone decides to do that in the future. Is there any way to
Okay.
change that?
let's give Jonathan a chance to respond then. Thank you very much for that. Thank you.
So
Go ahead,
what I
Jonathan.
would, what I would say for the loss of privacy, I'm just going to go back to sharing my screen here. What I would say for a loss of privacy, the only window that's proposed that has a side yard to side yard condition is being proposed within the 17 meters that's permitted under the zoning bylaw. So again, we go back to impact of what this proposal is. That impact of that window is what's envisioned within the zoning bylaw itself. Now, to go back to where the building code envisions that impact, those windows are permitted at 4 feet as per the as per the Ontario Building Code. So both in terms of the zoning bylaw as well as the Ontario Building Code, that 17 meters permitted of the zoning bylaw is the only portion that has a window that is proposed, which is a side yard to side yard condition.
Thank you very much for that. Is there a follow-up? Okay, seeing none. Our next questioner is Sandra. Sandra and then Lauren. Go ahead, please, Sandra. Question or comment?
I'm asking a question. Currently, I've
Thank you.
made my household with knowing the number of people who are going to live there. So I would like to know how many people are currently in the owner's family that will be residing there. And if she's adding on her elderly mother, what number are we looking at? And are they currently online renting out areas of the house right now?
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Well, in terms of who lives there, that's not really something that we're dealing with as a committee of adjustment application. We're really here for the variances that are there. I can't tell you how many people would live there in the future, but in terms of from a planning perspective, okay, again, the ability to make this a 2-family house or an accessory unit is envisioned in the zoning bylaw, is encouraged through official plans, is encouraged through provincial policies. This is all encouragement. If the idea or the intent was to do that, why would that just not be put on the plans now and make it legal? That's something that is envisioned. So I'm not sure I quite understand this fear of something that would be permitted under the zoning bylaw of somebody trying to lie and get around something when it's permitted as of right. It just doesn't make sense for me for somebody to do that.
Jonathan, thank you very much. But you would agree with me and the residents who are posing these questions that it would be helpful for the owner to help to inform members who are on this call and members of the community as to what the intentions are. I mean, I understand the 4 variances that are being asked for, we all get that, but we know as well that often, and we have seen this before, Jonathan, and you may not have, but many of us have in the community, where folks have come in and said, you know, I'm just expanding because I have a son and a daughter who's coming to live with me. It turns out that it is a rooming house. It turns out that it is more than what was actually stated. It turns out we have parking issues. We have a variety of issues. These are some of the concerns that the residents have. And with due respect, you can actually appreciate that in spite of the variance that we're here to discuss. I think that you understand that residents will want to discuss more than just the aspects of the variance. And I think that's what the intention of the question was. So it would be fair for me to suggest, if Ms. Valdarachan is able to provide the community with some comfort and providing some information. This is an opportunity to dialogue. This is what this meeting is all about. And so if we want to avoid these things and concerns that people have, I think it's important for us to ensure that we have some appreciation as to the concerns that residents may have. I hope you agree with me. All right, so you may not wish to answer and she may not wish to answer, that's fine. But I think that's the intent as to why the residents are asking the types of questions that they're asking. And I think we can give them that latitude, to be fair, because they are not planners per se. We do have some people who are part of the community who are have planning experience, and so on. Coming up with Mr. Ross, who was the former chief planner for Scarborough and planner of the city of Toronto years ago. So he does have experience. But many of the other residents are concerned about things like, as you've heard, privacy and so on. So I think we should afford them the opportunity to be able to at least offer some type of response. I'll just leave it there, and then I'll ask Mr. Ross to ask his question and a follow-up. Mr. Ross, you have the floor, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Michael. Are you there?
Yes, we are. Thank you. Go ahead, please, sir.
I've clicked on something to change my video presentation. I'll try to struggle through.
No problem. What did you want to have up? Did you want to have the elevation? Is that what you're looking for?
A couple of observations.
Okay, go ahead.
I can't disagree with the staff or Mr. Benkowski with respect to the variances having to do with the front yard, which is on Dewar Road. That is clearly an error in the original construction 60 years ago of the home. I can't think there's a slight issue even among the community with that variance. As to the second story, it's technical in nature. This is a bungalow. They want to put a second story on, like many people have in the community. I don't think there's an issue, frankly, with that part of the variance. There are second story homes. There are split levels. There are back splits, side splits throughout Glen Andrew. People have been taking off the roof on some of the homes and putting on a second story. The home immediately to the south is 2 stories on the edge that's approaching number 2 Cora. I don't think the issue is the 2-story. The issue is, although the applicant has been very carefully skirting around it in his observations, the issue is the rear yard setback. That standard's been in the bylaw for every home in Glen Andrew since 1962. The home to the south observes that standard. Mr. Benkowski is proposing to extend his building dramatically into that yard next to 2 Cora, and it will overlook the yard on the home in Dewar Road to the south. I sent Keisha my interpretation of Mr. Benkowski's plans. Perhaps she can put it up for you. Is she there?
Yeah, just give us a moment, Mr. Ross. We will try to get that up for you. Hang on a second, please. Just give us a moment. We're just working on that.
This is, my picture is now very small.
Well, it's okay. We can see your big picture, which is a plan here. Go ahead, Mr. Ross.
Okay.
Can you see it?
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay. That is my understanding and interpretation of the plans that are put in front of the Committee of Adjustment of the file. The more important one is the second drawing, if Keisha could put that one up. While we're waiting, you can see the impact on the front yard of the home on Cora immediately to the west. A full 2-story addition built way into the setback is very significant. In my opinion, is far beyond the ability of the Committee of Adjustment to grant. If the committee were to grant this variance, for this property, you are in effect changing the zoning bylaws rear yard standard for every home in the community. There's 75 corner lots in Glen Andrew. They all are required to observe the minimum rear yard setback. If you grant this variance, which is dramatic, you've effectively changed the bylaw, and that's not allowed for the Committee of Adjustment to do. That's something, if Mr. Benkowski wants to apply for it, he can apply to you, Councillor Thompson, and the full council for rezoning for the whole community. And then we can all discuss the merits of rear yards. I don't think he's up to the challenge. The second graphic, if Keisha can put it up, is better than this one.
We're just working on that,
Okay.
Mr. Ross.
Mr. Benkowski.
So you're Mr. Ross, just one moment, please. I'm just giving you the opportunity because I know based on your experience to obviously provide some keen insight. And I think that's very helpful to members of the community. And so we'll try to get the second diagram up for you. But then I will ask you if you could pose a question to Jonathan and or the owner of the property, along with the presentation that you're identifying. And I do agree with your presentation based on obviously what I've seen here. It is a dramatic change with respect to the rear yard setback, and that is a major fundamental problem with respect to this application, as I see it. There are technicalities, as you pointed out, with respect to what the bylaw does and does not do, and I think acutely aware as to the issues raised by members of the community. It's important to them. It may not be important to the Committee of Adjustment, but we need to ensure that the importance of the community is significant and should be understood. I wonder, just see whether or not my staff have your second of the two. We'll just see if we can put that up for you, Mr. Ross.
One is the important one. Mr. Benkowski's response to the privacy concern in the yards to the south focused only on the length of the building. The more important aspect is the rear yard setback. That intrudes dramatically into the rear yard, which is to say to the west on the subject property, and overlooks significantly the yard to the south. The property to the south, like frankly, I would expect the huge majority of homes in Glen Andrew all observe the minimum rear yard setback. Why does this home require relief from the bylaw, which is what the Committee of Adjustment grants? It's a flat lot, it's a rectangular lot, it's not an oversized lot, it's entirely a normal lot. Why does it require and deserve relief from the bylaw? My opinion, it doesn't, in terms of the rear yard. I didn't know.
Jonathan, did you wish to comment on Mr. Ross? We're having some difficulties trying to put your other plan up, but I wonder if Jonathan, if you could comment, please, with respect to Mr. Ross's point.
Well, a couple of things. The zoning bylaw, I'm happy to bring this up here. The zoning bylaw itself, when we look at front yard, rear yard, building length, building depth, is essentially predicated on the typical 100 deep foot lot. That's how we essentially come up with a 6 meter front yard setback, a 17 meter long house, and a 7.5 meter rear yard setback. That's essentially the basis of the built form of how we lay out a lot in the city of Toronto, based upon that 100 foot deep typical lot. When we look at this lot, we already see that that dwelling is pushed 7.75 meters from Dewar Road here. So we take that 7.75 here, even if we were to add the 17 meters, which is permitted under that zoning bylaw, there would still be a request for a rear yard setback. Now, to go back to the impact question of overlooking that again, and I'm happy to walk, I believe his name is Lauren, through the plans. There is no window proposed at all facing that adjacent dwelling there on the second floor. The only window that is proposed is here, which again is within that 17 meters. So in terms of a loss of privacy and overlook, that simply is just not the case. And again, I'm happy to walk him through the plans if he's having trouble looking at them, because again, there are no windows here that limit that overlook. So when we go back to that intent and purpose of how lots are laid out and how impact is perceived, everything changes with the size of the lot, where it's situated on the property itself. So yes, if we could move this house forward towards Dewar Road, we would be having a different conversation, but we can't because this is the lot we have, which already has that 1.75 meter in excess front yard setback that's there. And again, the portion that is in excess of that 17 meters is this recessed portion here of 1.56 meters that again has no windows and has no overlook or privacy concerns.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Jonathan. Mr. Ross, I think we're able to get your diagram on the screen. We're just going to try to put it up for you now so you can comment on that.
Okay.
Thank you. It's coming up now. Here you are. Can you see it, Mr. Ross?
Yeah, I do. Thank you very much. Mr. Benkowski
You're
seems to be talking about this as if this were some sort of unusual lot. It's not. It is absolutely typical, perhaps of not what he knows from the old city of Toronto. It is 1000% typical of what we have in Glen Andrew. The front wall of the building, as you can see, of the existing home is right in line with the existing front wall of the home to the south. In gray is what the bylaw permits today on this property and every other property in Glen Andrew for a rear yard. He has the right to build an addition. That addition would be the little gray area. It would extend, I think it's about 2.8 meters beyond where the existing rear wall of the home is today. And I've already indicated, I don't see a problem with a second story. That's technical. So he could build a 2-story home with the variance for the second story in line with what you see in the gray. My problem, and I believe his problem, is the black area. That requires a variance. That is an extension of the home into the required rear yard. If you look to the top of the drawing, where you can see the edge of the home to the north, it would extend well beyond the rear wall of the home to the north. You can't deny it. It overlooks that yard dramatically. Whereas compliance with the bylaw, the gray area would line up exactly. This is not an unusual lot. This is 1000% typical. The variance for the yard is not, has no merit whatsoever.
Mr. Ross, Mr. Ross, thank you for that. And I've given you some latitude based on certainly your experience in our working relationship over the years and so on. And I know that you know your stuff, quite frankly, so not going to argue with you. Let me then just take a look at my screen for additional questioners. I don't know, I don't want to make this into a debate with respect to yourself and Jonathan. I think that there's a lot of work to be done, and I hope that you will be part of that process to ensure we do some work in order to address some of the issues that have been raised so far. The next questioner I have is Wendy. Wendy, we will unmute your mic and you will pose your question and also a follow-up, please. We are fast approaching 7, so I just want to make sure we get as many people in as possible. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Michael. We
You're
have
welcome.
worked with Jonathan in our area on 68 Sunny Point and 46 Sunny Point, right through to T-Lab. I believe Mr. Benkowski spoke about the height and the size of the home not having any shadow impact on the neighbors. When I was looking at the diagram, we have used, with the assistance of other residential associations, shade studies. And from our understanding from specialists, that this home will have a significant negative impact. I do not believe Mr. Benkowski has provided a shadow study on his presentation, nor do I understand when or what map period he took to illustrate on the overview where he took, I understand where he took it from, but what year. There was a reference of it being dated. So if I could have that clarification.
Thank you very much for that. Jonathan, go ahead, please.
Well, in terms of the open data, these are just City of Toronto open data that I can't see the tile year from what it is, but this is just through the City of Toronto massing tiles. Generally, they're
if we had the
fairly
year, Mr. Benkowski.
Generally, is there anything else, or?
No, I think she was asking if you had the year.
I don't. It's not
You don't?
provided
Okay.
here.
Fair.
Again, it's
Fair
provided
enough.
to the city of Toronto.
Fair enough.
It would
That's
be fairly
Wendy,
up
that's
to
something that we can look into for you. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna, Wendy, did you have a follow-up?
Over there on Cora?
No, just that I would suggest that the adjacent neighbors please pursue a shadow study. These are easily available. There is a technology for doing it. If you need help, contact Fontra.
No problem. Thank you so much, Wendy, for that. And the next questioner I have is Angela. Angela, go ahead, please. Angela, are you there?
Okay, so now can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, go
Okay,
ahead,
great.
please.
Thank you for
Thank
taking
you.
my question. So I'm
Thank you.
afraid my question will not be answered by Jonathan, because I attend the meeting not to learn about how closely the zoning bylaw is adhered to. To me, the real issue is, given the house is between two public schools in the neighborhood, what sort of guarantee do we have as local resident for this house not to turn into a rooming house, or heaven forbid, a B&B? Okay, where residents come and go, no regular people living in the house. I've been here since 1989, and I'm very concerned about this. I foresee, maybe I'm being pessimistic, but I foresee this is the beginning where the neighborhood would change forever. I mean, I'm not
Okay.
against a group home. When a group home is well run, it's very doable for a neighborhood. But for this kind of 7 bedrooms, 7 washroom, the writing is on the wall.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Angela. I want to just ask this question because it's been told to me, and Jonathan, through you, and perhaps to the owner, Nalini. You're currently renting rooms, or currently renting some portion of the house now. Is that the case?
I have no idea. I'm basically a planner.
No,
here.
I'm asking your client. I'm asking your client. Does your client wish to answer?
I know she was here earlier. I'm trying to see if I see her name here.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right.
I'm not sure if she's here.
Fair.
I think you
Fair
guys would
enough,
have
fair
a better idea of if she's in the meeting.
Yeah, no problem. I'm looking to see if I can find her as well, and I don't seem to. I'm just looking here. Don't seem to see her. Nonetheless, I'm just looking to see if there's any additional raised hands. I've seen that. Nalini, is that you?
Yeah, I can.
Hi. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks.
Excellent. Welcome to tonight's meeting. A number of your neighbors have asked a number of questions, and Jonathan has answered a number of them, but there were a few that he was not able to answer. I think perhaps you're the only one who could answer this. Are you currently renting rooms in your house now, or portion of the home?
Only the basement. There's one of the couple only, and they are leaving end of this month too.
Okay, so you're renting the basement now. And a number of residents were asking, why is it necessary for you to have this many bedrooms and bathrooms?
No, my children and my siblings, when they come and visit my mom, elderly mom, and that is what I'm building the house, not like a one time. Okay.
I see. Okay.
That's
okay.
the reason.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much for that answer. And go ahead, please. Did you have more?
And spending money for one time only, not for every time. Spending for each and each.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that. Okay, folks, we are at 6:55, and the meeting will conclude at 7 p.m. I wanted just to take this opportunity to say thank you all to the residents who have come out and have expressed their concerns. I think it's obvious to the owner and her representative, Jonathan, that the residents are not satisfied with respect to both what is the intent as well as are not in agreement with respect to the variants that are being asked. I am at this point as well not convinced that it's necessary to have this type of development on this site in the community. And then Jonathan, thank you very much for providing your analysis and so on, showing other locations in the ward that have sort of longer length and so on. The fact of the matter is that I think that there's a need for more discussion, Jonathan, with you and your client. We would like to have that opportunity to be able to spend some more time with you and your client to talk about the concerns we've heard, valid concerns from members of the community this evening. I think you can gauge by the comments and the presentation from Mr. Ross that the community is not in sync with respect to the application. There's a need for more work to be done for this application to either get my approval and or that of the community. I can tell you right now, as it stands, there's no way that I would support the application. I would ask that the committee not basically approve the variances that would be asked for. Now, I also have to caution and remind members of the community that if the matter goes to the Committee of Adjustment and they refuse, the applicant and her representative can actually appeal this to the LPAT, which is a local planning appeal board, and they could decide that they would approve the application. I will say this, though, that the resources that will be necessary to respond to this will be made available. I will also provide an opportunity for Jonathan and the owner to meet with myself, meet with planning staff to address the concerns that have been raised, valid concerns have been raised this evening by members of the community. I also wanted to point out that, you know, as it is technical in nature in terms of the 4 variances that is being sought by the applicant and her representative, the Committee of Adjustment simply looks at the sort of, the matter from a purely planning perspective. And I think we can all agree here that what we have seen, not just in this area, but other areas of the community as well and beyond just Ward 21, we have seen a situation where there is an increased number of homes that are being expanded, lots of rooms and so on. And then lo and behold, what happens? They become the very things that people say that they would not become. A rooming house in many instances. And so, for example, if the home is sold, someone buys the home and they decide that, well, they don't want to live in it. They buy it as an investment property. They put rooming houses in. Now, not that it's legal in Scarborough. The fact of the matter is we're having a hard time trying to basically follow up on all the complaints. I know that there are people in the downtown, core councillors in downtown and the mayor are very much in support of having rooming houses expanded to the Scarborough area. This is something that I know because I've done the polling. We have seen a response that is almost 95% in opposition to rooming houses in the area and in Scarborough in general. Now, I know, Jonathan, you're not proposing a rooming house, so I'm not suggesting that you are, so please don't take it the wrong way. However, based on our experience to date, it seems that there is a tremendous number of rooming houses that have actually emit itself from these types of processes where we go through a C of A application, decisions made, and then, it turns into a rooming house. Again, I'm not suggesting that's what it is, but the concerns that the residents have is so that they believe it to be so. And it does affect the character of the community. There's no doubt about it. You may be within your rights and on behalf of the owner, but it does disrupt the harmony of the community. It does disrupt the character of the community. It does disrupt the lifestyle of the neighborhood and so on. And I think that it's something that we're going to have to take a further look at. So members of the community, on your behalf, I'm going to convene further discussion with the applicant and representatives along with our planning staff to see whether or not we're able to bring into effect some of the issues that you have raised with us this evening. And Wendy, thank you for the shadow aspect. And I know that you were not convinced that the issue around privacy could be maintained with respect to the expansion of the size and length of this property. So I will simply say to you that at this particular juncture, because we're at 7 o'clock, that we are not going to agree with the applicant, agree with the request for variances, and that we are going to basically take whatever actions we can take to try to get this application into conformity that would be consistent with that of the community, and to work through that. If we're not successful with respect to that, then we will actually obviously respond in a way in terms of appealing if it is approved at LPAT, and whatever other means that would be available to me to use on your behalf. So I want to thank you all very much, and I want to thank the Community Association for sending out additional information and so on. Mr. Ross, always thank you very much for your input and your guidance and so on. And I want to thank everyone. We will be back to you again to provide you with an update with respect to where we are on this once we've had an opportunity to sit with Jonathan and the owner and the planning staff. This matter is not complete at this point to the satisfaction of the community. And as such, I cannot say to you that I would side or approve or support the application. So with that, I will be back in touch with you as soon as I can. Don't have a date right at the moment. Mr. Ashby, Mr. Hines, and Bita, we will all work together and try to work with the applicant to see what we can do to bring a more settled application that would be in concert and in keeping with the intent of the community. Just one final point I want to make. There is this great intent now in the city of Toronto to put places, to do what's necessary to accommodate the needs that people say exist. But at the same time, it's actually at the expense of the, what I would term as the traditional neighborhood, traditional communities and so on. And people, they'll say to me when I say no rooming houses in my ward, they'll say to me, well, you can't zone for people because it's a human rights issue and so on and so forth. But I simply ask this question often. I don't ever get an answer. What exactly are we to make of it when many years ago, people bought into communities on the advice of government and administration saying this is single family residential dwelling. Now, all of a sudden, we're changing that to say that doesn't exist anymore. There's a whole series of transformation that's coming in terms of housing that will have impact. Safety will have impact on a variety of things in terms of services, et cetera. I am trying to work through those things in a way that isn't argumentative, that isn't sort of pitting people against each other. We've always taken the approach that we can work in collaboration, work in a cooperative way to address the challenges that we need. So I want to make sure that we're able to address these issues and concerns that you have raised tonight. So with that, I'd like to close this meeting and thank you very much for your time and thank you for the opportunity to have met with you this evening. And I will be back to you, and I will also use the assistance of the Community Association as well to get more information out. We would like to revisit this situation as soon as possible. So with that, thank you very much. I wish you all a good evening. Stay safe and healthy, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Good night.
Good night.
बाजी खुफिया जो हैं वो तो उसमें अस्पताल में है ना। मैंने मैसेज छोड़ा था, शायद आपके लिए आपने चेक नहीं किया।
Great job, everyone. Good night.
वो उनका एक्सीडेंट हो गया था दिसंबर में, तो उसके बाद से वो अस्पताल में है। नहीं वो सीढ़ियों से गिर गई थी तो उनकी हिप टूट गई थी। she broke her hip, तो वो फिर उसके बाद वो ऑपरेशन तो हो गया और हिप हील कर रही है उनकी, लेकिन जो राइट लेग उनकी मतलब ये वजन नहीं ले रही उनका ना चलने में। अभी वो फिजियो वाला हो रहा है वहाँ पर, ये ऑपरेशन तो इधर हुआ था स्कार्बो जनरल में, लेकिन उसके बाद